Patrick, thanks so much for coming on. I've really been looking forward to this like all week. So welcome.
I agree. Hey, thanks for having me on. You hit me up over email, and I do a lot of podcasts of my own, but it's not often that I get on somebody else's podcast. You and I met each other probably 14, almost 15 years ago through ONUG, but it's been a while. You're looking good.
Yeah, thanks. And so do you. And actually, what really kind of why I reached out is that I saw some of your posts, and that you had really kind of focused on to like a really good, healthy lifestyle. And I thought, okay, well, let's I'd love to have a conversation with Patrick about that. Um, because I think in our industry, not that we're very unique in our industry, but I think a lot of our industry folks tend to put their health second, and because they're pretty busy in what they're doing in their day jobs around IT. So I thought it would be really good to kind of share. It's like I think during the pandemic, I also kind of changed a lot of my habits and my lifestyle as well. So I thought it'd be good to kind of like give a lot of IT folks an idea of like you know the changes that could happen and what outcomes like may occur. But so I think that was the context, and I'm so glad that you were so, open to coming on and talking about this. Because I think it'll do a lot of good for a lot of folks, as well. So, and
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
willing to share a lot. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I definitely did it for myself, but putting all the content about the health stuff online, I've had about 700, 800 people either DM me directly, kind of asking, hey, how can I do that? And it's kind of turned into a thing.
Yeah.
And, it's just personally satisfying to, again, do it for myself, but to help other people and even inspire people that, a person like me who is almost 40% body fat could do this.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So I want to start. Like a lot of people know who you are, you're a famous, personality within the industry. But let's talk a little bit about your journey before we kind of dive into everything. So, like, how did you get to kind of do the analyst stuff, and kind of what kind of like got you going into like this career path?
Yeah, Nick,
What?
first and foremost, it was an accidental arrival into tech itself. I was supposed to go into investment banking with Solomon Brothers in 1990 and move from Ohio to New York. And my girlfriend at the time, who I was really serious with, just said, I'm not moving to New York. You're going to have to go it alone and we'll probably be done with each other. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. I really like this woman, who, by the way, is my wife now.
Nice,
And
awesome.
the highest paying job I could get was in tech. At the time, I didn't have a technical degree. I had a finance degree, hence the investment
Uh,
banking. And I worked and started in selling. And
hmm,
then realized that, after carrying it back for 2 years, I wasn't a very good, I was a better marketing person than a salesperson.
hmm,
Moved up in the ranks, uh, went to Compact Computer in 1995. I was
uh,
their youngest director in the history of the company. And for those who might not be familiar with that, it was the Apple of its day, right? We were
yeah,
number one brand in PCs. We invented the x86 server and scaled it, and which then got acquired by by HP. I left
yeah,
before that acquisition, went to do .com, spent 2 years at a company called Alta Vista, which at the time was the number one search engine.
yeah,
Google won, okay. Alta Vista
yeah,
didn't. But I wrote up
yeah.
the .com 100 million valuation up to 3 billion and then back to 200. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to get back into tangible goods. And I was a vice president at AMD. Ended up corporate vice president, 14 years, product management, product marketing, corporate strategy, um, created even their first channel marketing program. I was probably younger. And I couldn't believe it. I did that in my 30s. I think I was a
Hmm,
VP at 31. always felt like I was over my head. But in the process of this, Nick, I got to
Yeah.
know industry analysts, the IDCs, Gartner, Forrester, and then there were the smaller firms. And I always felt like I got the best advice from the smaller firms, the one man
Yeah.
bands, the Rob Enderleys, the Roger Kays, the Tim Baharans of the world. By the
Mm.
way, I was paying their bills. I knew how much they made. And I
Yeah.
thought, I think I can do a really good job at being an advisor to large tech companies. At the time, my last job at AMD, I ran corporate strategy, which took me from about 1,000 people when I was doing marketing to like
Mm.
three or four. Right, so
Yeah.
I had to relearn how to work, do work on my own as opposed to managing people. So
Yeah.
AMD was in a free fall. The company reportedly had 6 months of cash left. It actually had three, and part of the strategy was just to not go out of business. Okay,
Yeah.
and
Near death.
listen, and everybody who wasn't in sales and it wasn't an engineer was overhead, and I was overhead, right?
Yeah.
And I got riffed, took my severance, and put up my shingle. And my wife's just like, "Hey, does anybody else think you would be good at this? You've never started your own business." But I just had this ridiculous confidence that I could do this. And,
Mm.
part of the game was you had to be a really good giver of advice. And my thought was that I actually did this. I'm a person who
Mm.
did this. I've run billion-dollar
Yeah.
businesses. I think I can give pretty good advice to other people who are running multi-billion-dollar businesses. But the second was outbound, like your profile. And I was one of the
Yeah.
first executives who blogged and who was on X,
Mm.
formerly known as Twitter. Okay, so I had
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
I was one of these weird executives that blogged, and so I had, in fact, the board of directors had asked me to put together the strategy for AMD social media, and I took it and went. And here we
Mm.
are, 14 years later. We have over
Huh.
200 advisory clients and about 30 people in total of resources at the company. And I have two joint ventures of businesses aside from More Insights.
Wow. What a journey. And also too. So More Insights has only been around for 14 years.
That's right. Yeah,
It's
14
that's crazy.
years.
Hmm. It seems. I'll tell you. Patrick. It seems like a Forester. Like it's a staple. It's been around for a long time. So congratulations. Like you've kind of like got embedded into like the kind of the thought process of the industry. It's like that's really one. That's a great super journey. It's interesting how analysts kind of get to be analysts, because you don't go to school for it. You just kind of like make your way into it somehow, some way. But I do have to share a little bit, so I started off as an analyst as well. And but I didn't know what I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
my wife was very supportive. So I was like probably in my mid 20s. And she was working, and I was working at DEC and Digital Equipment Corporation.
Yeah.
And so Lil was like, so I was like, I think I really want to do this. I want to, go off. There was a consulting group that does a lot of consulting. And so they'll teach me how to do consulting, but I don't know how
Yeah.
it's going to work out. So she was like, okay, listen, I'm working, it's like, I think you need to do this. So she was really supportive, and if it wasn't for her, like I wouldn't have kind of gone down that path. But I tell you, the biggest thing that motivated me is that while I was working at DEC, she was a buyer at a store called Bradley's. And Bradley's is a large department store that is now defunct,
Right. Yeah, I remember
but she was a buyer. Yeah. So when I first started, like I was making, I think my offer out of college was like $25,000 a year. That's how
that.
much I
Right.
was making. And I think she was like 17 or something like that. you know, it was like within 5 years, she's making more money than me. And I'm like,
Right.
WTF?
Right.
So it's like that was, and she knows all this. That
As a
was one
motivator.
of the biggest motivators. It was like,
Yeah.
such a bruised ego. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I love it.
That
I love that story.
and it was really great because it worked out, but, yeah.
Yeah, that was
But
good.
anyway, so going back to you, is there like, out of that journey, and like, obviously, we're both still young, and so we have many more years to give. But is there anyone in particular that stands out that was a big influence in your journey and the direction that you went?
You
I know
know,
we just talked about our wives, so that might be it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my wife was the biggest one. She's the reason that I'm in tech. Otherwise, I'd be in investment banking. Um, it's interesting. My dad was a corporate lawyer who, West Point graduate. Uh, Guy worked for the same company for almost 30 years and ended up retiring
Hmm.
there as a lawyer, an engineer, then a lawyer. And I had always thought that that's what I would do, right? I work for big companies, I'd be a corporate executive, maybe be a CEO. But I think the big motivator, it's less about what I aspired to do because you remember, I mean, in the 90s, I mean, tech was just a bunch of geeks. It wasn't,
Yeah.
the people making all the money were in investment banking, oil, retail. If you look at the most valuable companies in 1990 or even in the mid 80s, they were not tech companies. So
Yeah.
um, I would say it was
True.
my dad from a style of work, right? And what
Hmm.
he taught me. We were kind of a broken family in a way. So I kind of grew up in my head on my own. Okay. But the one thing that my dad really instilled in me, he's like, and he would do it through his own self-deprecation, which is, hey, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'm going to outwork them.
Hmm.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
classic Midwest, right? I grew up in the Rust Belt, Cleveland, Ohio, and we're not known as being the most sophisticated people like y'all in the West Coast and the East Coast. But it's like, and he did go to some prestigious schools, but only because he got scholarships, right?
Hmm.
West Point Military Academy and GWU Law School. So it was
Hmm.
always we're going to outwork these folks. And I haven't told a lot of people about this, but I also had some physical ailments. I've got two back diseases,
Huh.
and I had braces. My eyes are terrible. Like, and
Hmm.
um, but going through adversity that I learned from him
Hmm.
on how to do that. And, I couldn't play contact sports after my freshman year because I had, it's called spondylolisthesis, which is kind of this
Huh.
dislocation of the vertebrae. And I have scoliosis. So I had to get out of
Ah.
contact. And then, but I ended up finding the sport that I could actually participate in, which is track and field, where I ended up, being
Hmm.
captain and all this stuff. And I wasn't the smartest, but I outworked people and I don't know, got close to, I think I got 1B in high school. So
Hmm.
it was really my
Yeah.
dad that motivated me. It's more on a style as opposed to, hey, I want to do what this person did. And, I wasn't
Hmm.
even enamored at the time. Even, Trump wrote the book, forget the name of the deal, or it's the art of
Oh,
the
the art of the
deal.
deal. Yeah.
And a lot of my friends in college were all over it, but I kind of wasn't even into that. But yeah, my dad was
Hmm.
definitely um, um, my inspiration in the methods of hard work and overcoming challenges.
Yeah. How awesome. What a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
I,
It's like,
Nobody's ever
it's,
asked me that on a podcast. This is
hmm.
great.
Well, it's interesting because like, when I first think about that, I kind of, my mind starts to search through, all of the kind of executives that I knew that I was working for and the lessons I learned from them. Um, so I don't think of my, my family members, but they have the biggest influence over us. And I thought that was really, that was really great, great to hear. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's like, because I think everyone can, a lot of people can relate to that. It's like, it's it's a very great American story. It's like I'm going to really compete. For either this role, this position, this stature, or what have you. And
And
so
Nick, I was
and
always over my
instilling
head.
that.
Yeah, always over my head. I mean, I
Mm,
faked it till I made it early because my strategy says I can figure this out.
mm,
And even when I was at Compaq, to the dismay of I had everybody who was Ivy League working for me. They all had MBAs from Harvard,
mm,
um, Thunderbird, MIT, and uh, I was made the manager because I guess I got shit done.
yeah,
Um, a lot of sacrifice, though. I really sacrificed,
yeah,
my family. I had kids when I was young. I was a young executive. Like my peers were in their 50s when I was 30. Okay, you can
yeah,
imagine that. Like, I can't be on the road all the time. I
yeah,
can't, everybody else's kids were out of the house and I had
yeah,
newborn. So
yeah,
it didn't come without
mm,
sacrifice. Luck comes a lot of the way too, Nick. Timing was everything,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Entering tech at this point, it was accidental. Like I said, and then having mentor every company I can name a person who
yeah,
kind of, whether it's Rob Courtney at NCR, Mike Rubin at Compaq, Jerry Sanders at
mm,
AMD, right? Just kind of made it happen. So, anyways, you didn't
yeah.
ask me that, but I
It's
thought
great.
I'd share it.
Yeah. Well, no, those are good call outs, as well. So I wanted to talk to like, as I mentioned a little earlier, it's like I was really impressed with a lot of your posts, especially around your health transformation. So I wanted to kind of spend some time, talking about that. I went through a transformation too, and so I thought it'd be good for us to kind of share that, with the community because like now clearly lots of industries have the same issue, but like in high tech, we tend to like hang out around computers a lot more, and so our healthy habits are usually wanting, and so and I know like even like when you were explaining the early parts of your career, like in the 90s in my own career, like I was on a plane literally like I was in 3 cities a week for
Yeah.
the entire 90s, and then maybe it slowed down in during Christmas and or the holidays and maybe during the month of August. So that was a very unhealthy kind of lifestyle, and I know you've also have had those too. But so maybe if why don't we talk a little bit about kind of like before and then kind of transformation and then now how you're kind of managing your health. So I thought we can talk about um, there's nutrition, there's exercise, there's sleep, there's biomarkers, even supplements. So it's like kind of whatever we want to talk about here. But I think it's really important for everyone,
Yeah.
not even just in tech, but especially as like okay, I'm older now, like I'm in my early 60s, so it's like I kind of knew that in my mind is that like there's one fact that I always go back to, and that is you don't see many fat old men walking around, you know,
Right. No,
because they don't
exactly.
last.
No, no,
So
exactly.
you better get in shape, and manage your health, before you can. So anyway, that's my motivation. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, listen, I want to make sure, I want to hear your story too. But listen, being on the road nonstop for 35 years, it catches up with you. We all have excuses about what happened. I think for me, it was when I had my first kid because I was very athletic in high school and college. I think I took that into my early 30s, and then it just drifted, and I had every excuse to
Mm,
not exercise. But I also didn't know the reality of what eating healthy was. I grew up in a Weight Watchers household, which we could probably debate that for 4 hours on here. If a margarine filled, high carb, low protein, and low fat diet works for you, it doesn't work for me. But
Yeah.
July of 2023, we had a great blowout family event at the lake house, and vodka was flowing. We were having fun, and I always think it was July 5th, and I feel like complete shit. Okay,
Yeah.
and my wife looks at me, and wife, here we go. She's like, "Are you ever going to do anything about this?" Right? And for about a microsecond, I was offended. By the way, she's in perfect shape, looks great, around the same age. She's 55. I'm 57 next month, and
Mm.
but I just decided that day I'm going to do something about it. So it wasn't a coronary artery filled, wasn't a heart attack. I was on 3 blood pressure medications at the time. And it
Mm.
was even getting hard to control, even with 3. I was about 40% body fat. And I just said on July 5th, 2023, I'm done. I am going
Mm.
to flip the switch. And a doctor friend of mine made a recommendation on a functional medicine doctor, Dr. Ubre
Mm.
Medical, if you're out
Mm.
there. And he just, I just literally, I'm going to do exactly what he says I should do. And I had a nutritionist at the time, and I was reading Peter Attia Outlive, where
Yeah.
there was
Great book.
a lot of
Mm.
synergy between those, and it came down
Mm.
to this: radical diet change, consistent exercise, gut restoration plan. You think DNA is complex? We don't even
Mm.
know the changes that go on our gut. Our gut is the biggest determinant of certain hormones in our body.
Mm.
And we don't even have enough compute power now to map out the gut biome. Supplements is number 4. Sleep is number 5. Stress management, number 6. So it was really a comprehensive
Wow.
all in.
Yeah.
And so if I just to net it out on the diet change, high quality animal proteins, a lot of veggies, healthy fats, no sugar, no artificial processed foods. And at the time, at the start,
Mm.
literally no grain, nearly
Yeah.
zero alcohol. I love to drink vodka, right? And why have
Mm.
one when you can have 10? It was like
that's
call it
that's for
call
sure.
it binge drinking, right? But it was like
Yeah.
about 9% of the population gets energy from alcohol. That's me.
Yeah.
Doesn't put me
Yeah.
asleep, gives me energy.
Yeah.
No dairy, a lot of water and electrolytes. For the first year, I
Yeah.
did zone 2 and not a whole lot of weights. Zone
Uh
2,
huh.
30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Anyways,
Yeah. So for
I
everybody,
lost.
zone 2 is a cardio, getting your heart rate up to kind of
Yeah,
like a zone 2, area. Yep.
it is the
So,
ultimate in fat burning, right? Anyways,
yep.
lost 60 pounds. Okay.
Wow.
Take a
Yeah.
handful of supplements in the morning, half of them at night. I did take a GLP-1,
Hmm.
which helped immensely with that.
Yeah.
But I got, monthly blood tests, right, for all my markers, make sure I'm
Yeah.
getting enough protein, and I radically changed my diet. So if you're going to do GLP-1s,
Yeah.
inhibitors, that's the way to do it. Um,
I think so. Let's
yeah,
stop there for 1 second. So, I also did Monjuro, as well, and I think if you're just doing, those semaglutides just for to lose weight, I think you're really missing a major opportunity because I think what it does, it gives you a clean slate. You're not really that hungry, so appetite suppression, is achieved. So then you get to really choose how do you want to feed your body,
yeah,
and so I think that's in my experience and probably in yours as well. I don't want to speak for you, but my experience is that it resets you, and then you can consume based upon what you want to achieve, and you have to exercise too. It's like you're going to get
have to.
immense results. With that, just great healthy results. So, anyway, I just wanted to stop on that because I think that's a really important, point,
Yeah,
for
it
everyone.
is important. And anybody who asks, I don't hide that I did a GLP-1. I'm not embarrassed about it at all. In fact, it curbed alcohol appetite, appetite for coffee.
Yeah.
It made things taste like garbage. I never got nauseous
Mm,
ever, which I guess I was supposed to.
mm,
Moving on to the sleep part. I mean, no coffee after afternoon. Basically, the Peter Tia thing, right? No alcohol after
oh,
6. Uh, uh,
mm,
don't have a drink after 6 p.m. And typically,
mm,
right now, any drink after having one kills my sleep quality. Total darkness,
mm,
63 degrees. Try to stay
yeah.
consistent. And Nick, I go to these West Coast trips, and
Yeah.
I try to, I'm in bed at 8 o'clock in Las Vegas because that's 10 p.m. in Austin.
Right.
Okay. And I'm up at 3 or 4. Right.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds completely hardcore, but once you start racking up the wins on the blood tests and the biomarkers on all this stuff, and people are like, I have people who don't even recognize me. I went to Davos last week in Switzerland, and I walked by this person I've known for 25 years, and I'm like, she's like, do I know you? I'm like, it's Pat. And
Yeah.
it's not annoying. It's kind of like, okay, I'll take that. Uh,
Yeah.
Last one is
Yeah.
stress management. My doctor told
Mm,
me I blew out my whole cortisol system. Okay. And I'm in a constant state of fight.
oh,
There's fight and there's flight. I'm in this constant
right. Yeah.
state of always being on. And that's Nick, that's just 35 years. I'm the
Yeah.
guy that goes to a vacation and I'm like, what can I do? Oh, this is the opportunity to catch up on work. And
Yeah.
apparently, I abused my body so badly. So
Huh.
um, I do much
Uh,
less weekend work. I
yeah.
started taking real vacations about a year and a half ago. I still do
Yeah.
triage emails, okay,
Hmm.
but I started
Yeah.
saying no. So stress, sleep, supplements, gut restoration, exercise, and a radical diet change. That's what I did for the
Yeah.
first year. And I'll just end by saying the last 6 months, I'm doing all this. I'm not doing the zone 2. I'm hitting weights. And I've
Mm.
gained by 7 or 8 pounds of muscle mass. I'm into hardcore weightlifting
That's a lot in a year.
now.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So a year and a
Wow.
half,
Yeah.
I've been
In a
on
year.
this. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
So yeah.
A year
Yeah.
was the losing weight and all the rest of this stuff. And then the past 6 months, so I've been at this around 18 months, has been weightlifting, strength training.
Yeah.
And just an
Yeah.
example, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
took my,
Yeah. That's a.
yeah, I was going to say hitting
No.
personal
Go ahead.
bests I have a trainer now. So I have a functional medicine doctor.
Yeah.
I have a nutritionist and I have a
Yeah.
trainer all at the same
Yeah.
time.
That's awesome. No, that's super. So yeah, I think when I used trainers for a long time, I stopped because I think during COVID I built a gym in the house, and and I realized that when I'm at a gym, this has to go back to like high school days. I'm competing on how much weight I'm lifting versus somebody else.
Yeah. No, that's
you know, but
we
it's
all
like
need our we
it's a
all need our motivation. I mean, mine was I didn't want to see anybody because I was so freaking weak and I felt feeble. Now, I mean, I put this stuff on Instagram, I put it on Twitter, I put it on LinkedIn. It just, it's funny. My wife keeps me honest and like, hey, are you doing that to get more pats in the back and more clicks? And I'm like,
oh
maybe,
yeah
but I have to tell you, people reach out and are like, how did you do that? What should I do? Where should I start? I got an email about 15 minutes before we got on,
yeah
and there's 10 questions. Somebody I don't even know emailed me, and I'm going to take the time.
yeah
I'm going to respond to them, Nick.
yeah Awesome. Yeah. Well, that's great. I think, like I said, hopefully what you're doing on social and also those who actually plug into this can get, is that, having a healthy lifestyle is extremely important. You're going to feel a lot better. Like I guarantee, I know you got to feel like infinite energy and just you feel so much better, than you did 2.5 years ago.
So much
You know,
better. I mean, that
yeah.
was the other part. I don't know if I said it or not. Back in July 23, and after 2 p.m., I was wiped. I was
Mm,
exhausted after
yeah.
2 p.m. And now it's
Yeah.
like, hey, let's go. I used to get up
Yeah.
at 7:30. Now I get up at 5. It's
Mm,
completely different. The energy is
yeah.
off the rails.
Awesome. What about blood pressure? How'd your blood pressure transition?
I still have a lot to work on. Uh,
Mm,
it's funny. I was down 1 out of 3 medications, and then it popped back up.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it's one of these things that I have to figure out, which is why is my
mm,
blood pressure high after all these? I've read a ton of research. There's a body of
yeah.
research, Nick, that says that if you're healthy on everything else, don't worry about it. I mean, my VO2
Mm,
max, I'm in the top 5 percentile of my age group. And for
yeah.
people 10 years younger than me, I'm in the 10%.
Yeah.
Body fat's at a good place. So I worry less on that. And the 2 blood pressure medications I'm taking don't negatively impact me. High blood pressure runs in the family. It's not sodium induced. It's not
Yeah.
stress induced. It's not fat induced.
Mm,
Um, and other countries, it's not 120 over 80. It's
mm.
130 over 90 or 130 over 100. Almost
Oh.
every other country is you're good, but if I were not taking anything, I'd be 140, 150, which
Oh.
is
Yeah.
still too
That's
high.
high.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I've got stuff to work on
Yeah.
still. Um, and I've
Yeah.
got the other thing I've got to work on, Nick, is I still have some lead and mercury in my system that have built up, and that's the last remaining thesis, Nick, of why I might still have high blood pressure. So I'm literally
Ah. So
taking
where'd that come
chelation.
from? Oh, so go
My
ahead.
doctor doesn't
Chelation.
exactly know, but it's a buildup.
Mm,
Every system, we're all exposed to all these chemicals, and everybody has a built-in capability level to get rid of those.
mm,
So it wasn't the fish. I mean, I did grow up. I lived on a farm for 3 years with lead and mercury pipes everywhere, but I just think it was a slow buildup um, over time. And every 2 weeks, I do an IV called chelation, which
mm-hmm.
is a cocktail of about 4 or 5 different drugs that are slowly getting these toxic metals out of my system. And for me, it's lead and mercury. And for those of you out there, there are special tests. The company that I go through is called Doctors Data
Mm-hmm.
to tell me exactly where it is. But I'll keep
Yeah.
everybody in tune on where this is going.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So how obviously that came from a blood test and a biomarker, the mercury, content, in your system. Right. So it's like, do you check that like once a quarter and see how it's
Uh,
being managed?
after after every 10 chelations, an interesting thing is the most accurate is a urine test, but it's a special it's a very much higher probability, sorry, a much more accurate test that told me that. And it did pop up on a blood test, but then that
Mm.
prompted to get, hey, kind of a second opinion on this thing, on where it is. And sure enough, I am outside the reference and red on these two. I even have thallium in
Yeah.
in my system.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, we all have things that we have to manage, and you know, um, just and talking about Peter Attia. So like about this had to be not last Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving before. I had my roommate from college had a mild heart attack, and he was like the freaking healthy one. You know, he was like always putting like flaxseed oil like on everything, and it's like he would make me feel guilty for like eating anything I was eating. You know, in the in the apartment that we're in. So for him to get like have an event, I was like, holy shit, you know. So anyway, so I went, but I've always been managing my lipids. You know, I've been on a statin for 30 years, something like that. You know, so but like I was going by the guidelines, you know, of the kind of American Heart Association, right? And so that is at one point in time is to keep your LDL-C below 100. Now it's and still is. They're saying 100. You know, if you have an event, try to keep it below 70. You know,
Yeah.
and so what what happened is that both my roommate and also my brother-in-law had these events, and they were like, we don't get it, you know, because like our lipids were like fine, you know, like for
Yes.
years, perfectly fine. So anyway, so I went and had a CT scan, and so I saw, you know, some plaque buildup. So and I've been visiting cardiologists for years as well. So anyway, so during so after we had that CT scan, you know, test, so we increased my statin, but then I started reading Peter Attia's, like his chapter 7 is really great. You know, it's like it's really all about. It's called, I think, the ticker. You know, and that's all about, you know, your heart. So I had so he exposed me to two other kind of biomarkers. One is LP little a. So
Yes.
you know, so you're familiar?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yep.
big into this and ApoB over ApoA1 ratios.
Yeah.
You know how it all intersects. Yeah, I am all in on that, and I probably have a diet that's
Yeah.
very controversial. I mean, my cholesterol is in the red. HDLs look great. Triglycerides look great. LDLs
Yeah.
very high, and
Mm.
per American Heart Association, somebody should put me on statins. But my thesis is it's not the cholesterol that kills you; it's the
Yeah.
inflammation that
Yeah.
that that kills you. And therefore, you know, and my inflammation markers are all but one is in the green.
Yeah.
And the key one here too is the size of the particles, the X, the
Right.
lipoprotein subfractions, the X SDLDL. But yeah, I'm genetically good on
Yeah.
the LP little a, right? It's very hard to change that. And green on
Mm.
ApoB over ApoA1, and
Yeah.
that's a measurement of your ability to process that cholesterol. So um, I have I did a 3D test of my heart, and given my age,
Yeah.
not surprisingly, I think we all have some blockage, but
For
it's the
sure. Yeah.
non-calcified that you either want to calcify or
Yeah.
um, you don't want the low density non-calcified to turn into something different because that's what gives you the heart attack. The
Yeah.
particles break off. The heart
Yeah.
attacks are stroke.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
infrequently is a clogged artery the thing that's going to give you the heart attack. It's the breaking off of those
Yeah. Of
particles.
plaque. Yeah. Soft plaque. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. That's yeah. So you know, so that's good. So I viewed it a little bit differently. I have elevated LP little a. You know, which is, as you know, it's a genetic marker, you know, there. So I started taking PCSK9 inhibitor. So I'll do the injection like every 2 weeks. Once I started doing that, it freaking crushed. My LDL is like 30. My ApoB is like, you know, 30. And and we're still waiting, you know, probably another couple of months. But in some cases, it has been able to lower LP little a by like 20-30%, you know, and so we'll see how that goes. But there's also going to be a whole bunch of other drugs on the marketplace, probably within a year, like mRNA, you know, derivative-based drugs to actually lower LP little a, you know, as well. So it's like I think
Yeah,
that was one of the big,
Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison was discussing that. basically the whole custom drugs and mRNA, not necessarily the
Yeah.
for these types of things. Statins scare the heck out of me. I've read too much about the downside. If you can, if you found a cocktail that work for you, the PSK9, that's great. Um, and even Atia says, hey, I put people on statins immediately when they come in, and then work on a plan B to get it down naturally. Somehow, Nick, I mean, it was genetics. I was 40% body fat, yet
Yep.
my lipids weren't completely off. I don't know how I did that. And then when I went to the hardcore animal protein, not worrying about the fats. Um, um, Interestingly enough, my whole ApoA, ApoB kind of came into line, and my HSCRP, which to me at least, my doctor says, hey, if you're only going to test one thing for inflammation,
Yeah.
is almost indetectable at this
Mm.
point.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's like, so, all right. So where are you now? Kind of like, just if you care to share body comp, and then also what's your routine look like for the week?
Yeah, let me pull this up. So, like any semi-structured person, you have objectives for the year, and my objectives for the year. First of all, hang on, I keep trying to hit on this. It's not letting me do this. So, my body fat percentage right now, if it's in body, it's 14%. If it's DEXA scan, which is the gold
Yeah.
standard, is 17.9%.
Yeah. That's great.
Um,
Congrats. That's super.
Now, thank you. And by the way, that's a reduction of body fat by almost 30, 40, I guess almost 30%.
Yeah.
Reduction in
It's huge. Yeah.
PPF. And my goal this year is to maintain body fat percentage. Ultimately, I'd love to get to 10%, but that's not the focus. The focus
Mm.
is putting on muscle mass for me this
Yeah.
year, and it's muscle mass, but it's really strength.
Mm.
And I'd love to. Bench press is an easy one to go, but I'd like to be bench pressing 245 by the end of the year. 245 times five, leg press 225 by eights. Quads are
Hmm.
difficult for me. I can do leg presses
Yeah.
till they come home. Oh, I've got an inguinal hernia, so I don't deadlift. Sorry, I don't do squats
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
as well. I'd like to
Um,
decrease my visceral fat, and visceral fat, everybody,
yeah.
is the fat right around your heart and around your
Yeah.
organs. Um, um, my visceral fat, I'm having issues here. My visceral fat has lowered considerably, but I
Oh,
feel like
good.
I can
Yeah.
still build muscle mass. And here's the weird part, Nick. I stopped trying to do hardcore weight loss, and I started hitting the weights hard, and I kept
Yeah.
losing body fat as a percentage. It was
Well,
crazy.
I
And,
think it's
and
because you
it,
have. Go ahead.
well, it's funny. It wasn't just because I was
Yeah.
increasing, I was losing fat too, which
Yeah.
my only thought there is that through weightlifting, I have turned my turned my body into a fat burning
Mm.
machine. That's
Yeah.
all I can come up with
Yeah. It
at this.
makes sense. Your metabolism increased. Yeah. Your was it, basal metabolic rate. Probably increased. From weight training.
Yeah, one of my
Yeah.
markers says it has. It's gone up by I guess 600 points, which is kind of cool. But yeah, here's the visceral fat. Yeah, I started
Yeah.
off with 5 pounds of visceral fat. I'm at 1.9 pounds at this point. Um,
That's pretty
People in their
freaking
20s
good.
have zero, right? I'm hoping that I can
Yeah.
do that. I want to figure out. Let's see if we can figure out my hypertension, and
Yeah.
maybe it's the metals, my heavy metals that are in there. The
Yeah.
final thing is on the gut biome. I need to get retested to see where I am, but I bombed my gut biome with
So
chemicals,
how do
with
you test
literally.
for that?
There are a couple companies out there. I use one called Geneva Diagnostics. It's a fecal test. It's called
Hmm.
2200 GI Effects Comprehensive Profile.
Hmm.
And it tests for maldigestion, inflammation, dysbiosis, metabolic imbalances, and an infection. And
Yeah.
I had um, it's kind of like a condo where you have good stuff and bad stuff in your gut biome. If you have bad stuff, you've got to kill the bad stuff to get the good
Yeah.
stuff to come in. And the good stuff can be a certain strain of bacteria. And we're
Yeah.
all different. And this is what I mean by there's not enough compute power uh, to figure out exactly what should be in the gut biome. It's very race, gender, ethnicity, like
Hmm.
literally where were your caveman roots? Okay.
Hmm.
But I bombed I killed almost everything in my gut biome. And those were the darkest days, Nick, like in the fetal
Huh.
position on an airplane with zero energy. You bomb the gut and then you
Yeah.
repopulate it with good foods. And that actually
Huh.
changed even I don't have any cravings for sugar. I don't have any cravings
Hmm.
for carbohydrates anymore. But I had to go through
Yeah.
this nasty process of killing it and then building it back up. You can't just put more
How
of the
long
good
was
stuff.
that?
That took
Wow.
about
Yeah. So
six
how long was
months.
that?
About six
6 months.
months.
Oh
It was
wow. Yeah.
tough.
That's a. Yeah. Yeah. That's a process. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, Patrick, I wanted to actually talk about a little bit about DeepSeek, but I don't think we have time. I think we're kind of like kind of use this to really kind of talk about health, which is really good.
Sorry, man. I probably
You
talked
know,
way too much. My apologies.
no, not at all. No, it's like this is really that was the main point. I just thought, we're both kind of in the marketplace. It might have been good to kind of talk about something topical. Um, but anyway, I thought that was just really great. Thank you so much for sharing so much. I hope a lot of folks got some good information, out of this. And then I think also too is that as most of us in the industry, we're very kind of data driven. And I think once you actually start to get plugged into, your own biomarkers, it becomes really natural. I think most IT folks will gravitate, or
Totally.
folks who work in tech anyway, kind of gravitate towards kind of understanding your body from a data, point of view. So thanks so much for sharing. Congratulations on the transformation, as well, and a really great outcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that, Nick, and it's great to see you after a long time. And anybody who's listening out there, I have a fixed post on my LinkedIn where I give my first year of what I did, and everything I took, devices, applications, books, where I got
Hmm.
my testing from. It's
Awesome.
all up there, and feel free to DM me. Like I said before, I've had over, I don't know, 700, 800 people hit me up on this, and I'm here to help, and I'm motivated, give some inspiration to folks. If I can do this at 40% body fat, and you can
Hmm.
too, at 50, 56 at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Great. Hey, Patrick, thanks so much. We're going to we'll drop that URL into the notes for everybody. So again, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for plugging in, as well. This has really been a treat for me to talk to you about this stuff. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.